Assalamualaikum and good morning everyone. Thank you for joining us in this roundtable discussion. So before we start, I would like to introduce to all of you to our audience. First, we have Miss Syamilah from representative from consumer. Next to her is Dr. Teoh from nutritionist team. And lastly, we have our cardiologist, Dr. Mardhiah. And I'm Nur Ili as your moderator. So our topic today is about formulating food for heart health. So I assume that every one of you aware that each of us has only one heart, obviously. So I want to know how actually our heart functioning. How does it works? So Dr. Mardhiah, can you explain a little bit on how our heart function? Just for introduction for today's topic.
Okay, thank you, Miss Moderator. Good morning, fellow panels, Dr. Teoh and Miss Syamilah and everyone. It will be my pleasure to take up on the request. So I will begin with a question. Can you guys guess how many times on average our heart beats throughout our lives? 100 millions?
No idea.
Billions? Trillions? Nah. Our heart beats on average 2.5 billion times on average lifetime. It will pump gallons of blood to all parts of our body to carry important substances such as oxygen, of course, hormones and a host of essential cells. Our heart is also whisk away waste products of metabolism. So when it stops, essential process will also stop. Some almost instantly. So this never-ending role of a heart makes even me wonder, how does our heart able to function so well for so long for so many people?
That's right, Dr. Mardhiah. Our heart is really awesome. Although our heart is very powerful, it also can fail. Brought down by poor diet and lack of exercise, smoking, infection, unlucky gene, and more. I repeat the part which most of us relate to. Poor diet and lack of exercise can cause heart failure. Now, talking about heart failure, it is important for us to notice small signals from our body giving to us, so that we can aware and take action to it. Dr. Mardhiah, I'm curious, what are the symptoms of heart disease? Is it same for different gender?
Yes, you're right, Miss Ili. It is really important to acknowledge these signals. So first, it may vary according to the gender. For instance, men are prone to experience chest pain, while for women are prone to experience other symptoms along with chest discomfort, which is the example of chest discomfort is nausea, extreme fatigue, and shortness of breath. And the pain, numbness, coldness, and or weakness in our leg may indicate that our body is trying to tell us to watch over our lifestyle or to check the condition of our heart. And the irregular heartbeat and fainting may also be our body telling us to check on our heart condition. So as Miss Ili mentioned earlier, we only have one heart. So let's look out for this one heart of ours, just like how it looks out for us.
Thank you, Dr. Mardhiah. So now we will go to deeper on topic today. We will talk about Mediterranean diet. So Dr. Teoh, can you tell us more about Mediterranean diet?
Mediterranean diet is actually a balanced diet that traditionally includes fruits, vegetables, the carbohydrates such as pasta and rice. So people usually they will eat fish instead of red meat, and we're taking an average of 9 serving high antioxidant fruit and vegetables daily. So for your informations, grains that grow in the Mediterranean, they were having a very few saturated fat and also the trans fat, which will help us to promote heart health. So people will include the plain bread in their diet. So usually they will eat them by their own or dip in the olive oil. So they won't eat the plain bread with the spread of the butter and margarine. This is because the butter and margarine, they were having a high level of the trans fat and saturated fat, which will cause the heart disease. Besides that, nuts is also one of the food components that can usually found in the Mediterranean diet. This is because the nut, they were having a very low saturated fat and also the trans fat, which will help in our heart health. However, the nuts, they were having a very high calorie value, so we only can take in a small amount. In Mediterranean diet, people also will avoid themselves from eating the high level processing food because they were having the additionals of high sugar content and also the high salt content.
Thank you, Dr. Teoh. Ms. Syamilah, as a consumer, have you ever heard about Mediterranean diet before?
Yeah, I ever heard about this diet before from my friend.
Oh, that's good. Can you explain the benefit of having Mediterranean diet?
Okay, thank you to our Miss Moderator, Miss Ili. Yes, of course, Mediterranean diet can bring some benefit to us. As what Dr. Teoh said, that Mediterranean diet is low in saturated fat. But by follow the Mediterranean diet, you will not going to be hungry because you can build in a variety of healthy fats in your body. So by limiting the consumption of red or processed meats, you can lower the saturated fat levels in your body. And by relying heavily on the monounsaturated fatty acid like olive oil, avocado or nuts, you also can lower the saturated fat in the body. And unsaturated fats don't lead to high cholesterol, as what the saturated fats do. The high cholesterol in our body is highly associated with the heart disease. Helpful sources of fat like olive oil, fish oils, and the nut-based oils. Through this type of food, you can reduce the risk of getting heart disease. Growing number of studies shows that the people who follow this Mediterranean diet are less likely to die of heart disease compared to the people who follow the typical American diet. That's all.
Thank you, Ms. Syamilah. Apart from Mediterranean diet, what about food that we should consume for heart benefit? Can Dr. Mardhiah and Dr. Teoh give us a few suggestions about food that we should consume?
Okay. As a cardiologist, from years of experience and studies, I found that eating a lot of sodium will contribute to high blood pressure, which is a risk factor of cardiovascular disease. So reducing sodium intake is a really important part of healthy heart diet. So according to American Heart Association, healthy adults like us should take less than or equals to 2,300 milligram of salt per day, which is roughly about a teaspoon of salt. So reducing something we should take note of is although reducing salt we add to our food at the table or while cooking is a good first step. Most of the salt we eat is actually from canned product and processed food, which is for example soups, baked foods, and frozen dinners. So eating fresh foods and making our own soups and stews can help us reduce sodium intake. But don't worry, if you really like the convenience of canned food and frozen dinners, you can choose the reduced sodium option. The one we should be wary of is if the product is labelled with low sodium, which is generally the food is seasoned with sea salt, which has almost the same nutritional value as the regular salt. Another suggestion I would like to give is choose your condiments carefully, because most of the condiments available at the market has reduced sodium option.
Well, apart from what our cardiologist has been mentioned, so for me as a nutritionist, I suggest that you can add in the dark chocolate in your diet when you are formulating the food for your heart health. I believe that everyone loves to eat chocolate. Actually, chocolate is a very good food which help to promote the good heart health because they consist of the flavonoid and also the antioxidant which will help us to reduce our blood cholesterol and also prevent the blood cholesterol from sticking to the wall of the arteries. So when you are purchasing the chocolate, you must be aware of the food labeling. So you only take the chocolate that consists of at least 70% of the cocoa powder and has a low sugar content.
Thank you to both of you. Ms. Syamilah, when you go to the market to buy food, what are the aspects that you consider to buy for health benefit?
I'm sure that not every person will rate the back package of food levels, right? So, but we certainly know which ingredients we want more or less of in our food. As a consumer, the ingredients that we want more in our food are those that considered to be healthy, such as the omega-3 or omega-6 oils, the fiber and the vitamin C. While the ingredients that we want less in our foods are those that are unhealthy to our body, such as the salt, sugar, and saturated fat. As what I mentioned earlier, the saturated fat can lead to heart disease, while high consumption of salt and sugar also can lead to heart disease.
Well, Ms. Syamilah, you can also include the plant food in your diet. As plant food, they also consist of the flavonoids. So, and also antioxidant, which will help you to reduce your cell damage and help in the heart disease. So you can normally take the fruits such as the berries, citrus, apples and grapes. So for vegetables, which is high in the flavonoids, will be the broccoli, spinach, beans, and also the Brussels sprout. So furthermore, vitamin E should be also included in your diet as they also act as a strong antioxidant which will maintain a good cardiovascular system.
Oh, I see. But Dr. Teoh, where can we get the vitamin E from?
So the best choice for you to obtain vitamin E is from the nuts, especially the almonds, peanuts. So other than that, you can obtain vitamin E from the avocados and also broccoli. So for your information, the ready-to-eat breakfast that usually found in the market, they consist of the vitamin E, but you need to be aware of the sugar content of it so that you get benefit from the food.
I would like to add some. I've read an article say that fatty fatty fish such as tuna, mackerel, and salmon, loaded with omega-3 fatty acid, which is good for our health. But if you don't like seafood, you can take fish oil as alternative. Fish oil supplement have shown that to reduce blood triglyceride, improve arterial function, and lower our blood pressure. So now we know the food that we should consume. What about food that we should avoid to maintain our heart health?
Okay, it is also important to know the types of food we should avoid. Okay, just now I mentioned about the sodium intake. So now let's take a look with fats. Okay, fats have unsaturated, saturated, and trans fat. So limiting saturated fat, saturated and trans fat is also an important step to reduce blood cholesterol and lower risk of coronary artery disease. Okay, so high blood cholesterol level will lead to the build-up of plaques in the arteries, which is called atherosclerosis, which will increase the risk of heart attack and stroke. So, as American Heart Association mentioned, the intake of saturated fat suggested for us all is between 5 to 6% of the daily calorie intake of our meal. And as for trans fat, we should avoid it at all costs. Okay, so from what I just said, the food we need to be wary of is as Dr. Teoh mentioned before, butter and margarine contain a lot of trans fat and saturated fat, so we should avoid it. Other than that, we should avoid cream sauce, non-dairy creamers, and coconut or palm oil. So we should reduce the intake of this food to avoid overtaking of trans fat and saturated fat.
So beside from that, it is highly recommended that consumers should take less preserved meat, such as the sausage, ham, bacon, and salami. This is because all of this preserved meat is highly preserved with the salt, sodium nitrate, which will bring harm to our heart. So, as you all know that whole grain, they are very good for our health, like they will lower our blood cholesterol, help to reduce the heart disease, or even diabetes. However, when these products undergoes a high level of processing, they will give an adverse impact to our health. So the very first reason is that when the whole grain they undergo the high processing, they will lose of their nutritional components such as the dietary fiber, vitamins, and also the minerals. So secondly is they will lose their natural structure. So for example is that when we consume the finely milled grains, which is a high processing whole grains, so they will bring a higher spike to our blood vessels compared to a less processing grains such as the stone-cut cereals. So thirdly is that the high processing food, they were having additional substances such as the nitrate, sodium, salt, which will bring harm to our heart health. And the final one is that there will be the fructose which is found in it, so they will digest in a different manner compared to the sugar, which will lead to the liver to having a high production of the new fat. So what we can say about this is that even a food originally is like good for our heart health, but when it undergo a very high level of processing, it will give a bad effect to our health too.
Thank you, Dr. Teoh. Ms. Syamilah, do you have any suggestion from consumer perspective?
From my perspective, I would like to suggest to reduce the salt, sugar, and saturated fat in our diet in formulating food for heart health. As what Dr. Mardhiah and Dr. Teoh said, that trans fat, sugar, salt, and the saturated fat can do harm to our body if we consume it exceedingly. Next, hence I think the food manufacturer should lower the levels of these ingredients in the food. Next is adding more healthy ingredients instead of lowering the undesired or unhealthy ingredients to food as the alternative way. And last but not least is as eating the saturated fat can increase the cholesterol level, the consumption of this fat must be lessened or replacing the saturated fat to healthy unsaturated fat such as the monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fat. That's all from me.
Thank you. As we are running out of time, let me conclude everything. As new evidence emerge, the link between diet and heart disease becomes stronger. Including those heart healthy food as part of nutritious, well-balanced diet will keep our heart in good shape and maintain our health and can keep away the risk of getting heart disease. That's all from us. Thank you.